watching later. Tonight's invocation will be given by Nathan Barrett, Deputy Community Development Director, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Eva Corneliuson, a fifth grade student at Wrightson Ridge Elementary School. And we were just talking about it earlier. They have the coolest new pond with desert tortoises over at Wrightson Ridge. So you're in charge of it, right? No, I'm teasing. Please join me.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this day and for the good we've been able to accomplish in it so far. We thank Thee for those who serve and build and strengthen our community, our elected officials, our first responders, our staff and volunteers. We thank Thee, Lord, for this nation we live in and the freedoms we enjoy. We thank Thee for Thy guiding hand which has made and preserved us a nation. We thank Thee for the men and women at all levels of government who give of themselves to protect those liberties and shield us from threats near and far. We ask Thee at this time to bestow Thy Spirit upon these council chambers. May it fill our hearts and help us hear one another, understand one another, and see one another. May Thy Spirit connect us, fill us with peace, and grant us wisdom. We ask for Thy grace and boundless love to be in our own hearts today, so that we may see one another the same way that Thou seest us. We give These thanks and ask these blessings, Lord, with humble hearts, and in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Nathan. Eva, come up to the podium there. And you have a choice. We'll probably have an electronic flag here, or we have a flag here. We'll go with this one. Oh, there we go. Whenever you're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Eva. Appreciate it. You said you were going to sing a song now, right? No. I don't want to scare you. I want you to come back sometime. Thank you. Mr. Manager, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Gillespie.
Here.
Councilmember Lisk. Councilmember Lytle.
Here.
Councilmember Morales.
Here.
And we heard you just fine, Councilmember.
Yep.
Councilmember Priolo.
Here.
Councilmember or Vice Mayor Egbert. Mayor Murphy.
Present.
Looks like we've got a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you. Tonight we have two presentations. First, I'll present a proclamation declaring May 2025 as Building Safety Month to Diana Hamburger, Drew Salcido, Jesus Preciado, did I get it okay? And Heather Diaz. Following that, we have Eric Burkett, Regional Manager, and John Corwin, Vice President and General Manager for Global Water Resources, will present their annual report for the Farmers Water Company and Saguaro Water District Company. So if Community Development would join me. Thanks. And with this new setup, I'm going to face the council. So if you want to turn, and then we can do pictures on all kinds of different angles. Whereas the town of Sahuarita is committed to recognizing that our general strength depends on the safety and essential roles of our homes, buildings, and infrastructure play, both in everyday life and when disasters strike. And whereas our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of building safety and fire prevention officials, plan reviewers, building inspectors, permit technicians, architects, engineers, tradespeople, design professionals, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. Whereas these individuals are dedicated members of the International Code Council, a nonprofit that brings together officials that are experts in the built environment to create and implement the highest quality codes and standards to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, and play. And whereas these modern building codes and standards include safeguards to protect the public from hazards such as tornadoes, wildland fires, floods, and earthquakes. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council, reminds the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown protectors of public safety, our building safety professionals, who assure us the safe, sustainable, and affordable buildings that are essential to our prosperity. Whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by building safety and fire prevention departments in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Tom Murphy, the mayor of the town of Sahuarita, on behalf of the town council, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2025 as Building Safety Month, in testimony whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the seal of the town of Sahuarita on this 12th day of May 2025. Congratulations. A hand for our building.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Murphy, council, and staff. On behalf of Anna, Nathan, and all of our building safety department here and not here, we would like to thank you for taking the time to recognize and present this proclamation to us during this month of May, which is Building Safety Month. It is always encouraging to know we have a mayor and council that always has our back while we provide our services to our amazing community in a faster, cheaper, and easier way each and every day.
I love that.
So thank you very much. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you. I love that. They stole my quote. Thank you. Good memory. And if Eric and John, if you come up to the podium now and continue in the presentation, please. And I think that's the first time I probably have heard of it, but when I saw the Saguaro Water District Company, you'll have to, there's on that top button there, Eric, right there, that's a toggle switch that goes up and down, if that's what you're looking for.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
Good evening, Mayor Murphy, council, staff. First, I just wanted to take a minute to recognize and thank Shane and his team. They've been great to work with since we've been involved in the town of Sahuarita. So I just wanted to say thank you, and you got some great people. So tonight, we're going to give a high-level overview of our annual report. But before we get started, I just wanted to remind everybody about the utilities that we have here in Sahuarita.
and yep, good.
So it's an overview of the farmers' water system and what we now call the Global Water Saguaro District, which is one of many water utilities in Pima County. That includes the Las Quintas Serenas water system. The farmers' water system serves approximately 3,500 connections. It's comprised of 4 separate public water systems, 3 of which are located in the town of Sahuarita proper. And there's a 4th public water system that is located in Green Valley. And then just adjacent on the west side of the expressway is the Las Quintas Serenas water system. So basically, like I said, we're going to do a high-level overview for both water systems. So first, we're going to touch on some of the 2024 community outreach that we participated in. We'll discuss some of the 2024 projects that we performed. And we're going to discuss some of the planned projects that we have in 2025. And then John will give a brief update on the Global Water Farmers rate case. And we'll touch on some of the water resources. So why are we here? So just to give a little background, in 2022, the town of Sahuarita and Global Water entered into a memorandum of understanding. Part of that memorandum is that we provide an annual report to Shane on May 1st of every year, and we're here to present that at a high level.
Hard to believe it's been 3 years already, isn't it?
I can't believe, I feel like I was just here yesterday. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is community involvement and outreach. In 2024, we participated in numerous outreach events. We also donated to the Sarita Food Bank, and we donate every year to the Continental School System for their gala banquet. And of course, we're a continued membership, and we support the Green Valley Sarita Chamber of Commerce. So I'm going to jump forward a little bit to 2025. We've been a little more proactive than we were in 2024 with the community outreach. I will say I had the opportunity to participate in the Water Festival this year at the middle school. And going forward, I now thank every teacher that I meet.
Yes.
They do
Every
it-
day.
They do an amazing job, and I don't think they're appreciated enough. Some of the 2024 projects that we undertook into this past year, it's quite a few of them. I will say some of them were large projects, and I'm glad to say that we executed them successfully. Basically, this list here, I will touch upon each project briefly. So I'm not going to read the list to you. I'll just jump to the next slide and give you an overview of what the project entailed. So the first project is we completed the Farmers Water System Master Planning. We incorporated the FICO Sarita specific plan as well as the Continental specific plans. We incorporated that into our master planning, and then we worked with staff to get their feedback for short-term, intermediate, and long-term vision. What's exciting about this project that we completed is it provides the framework for not only the utility, but also for the town for the next 40-plus years. And as we also included the CCAP, we did a real high-level planning of it, but we do have the groundwork put in place for that if it were to come to fruition.
We always say when, you know.
When,
not
yeah.
if.
So the next project for the Global Water Farmer System is we did update all 10 of our locations with what we refer to as SCADA, the Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. What it provides us from an operational standpoint, it provides a higher visibility, and it gives us more alarming capabilities. What I like about it the best is probably that it adds historical data and trending capabilities. So we can watch certain pieces of equipment and how their performance is doing. And it kind of gives us some insight into proactive PMs. It allows us the opportunity to get ahead of any kind of major malfunctions.
And that includes leaks and things, right, for irrigation? I mean, if you see a high, all of a sudden, water use
Yeah,
out of the ordinary.
it could be multiple things, but if there's something happening out in the distribution system, it alerts us to the fact that we're using more water than we should be.
Right,
And we'll get boots on the ground to see if we can figure out what it is.
great, thanks.
The next project we chose each year, and as part of the 5- and 10-year capital plan, our intent is to procure and install generators at all of our locations. We're trying to, increase reliability and redundancy. And the first location we chose to do this upgrade in 2024 was the Sarita Highlands Water Distribution Campus. And the reason we chose that is we experienced between 9, maybe 9 and 10 power outages. So like those folks were without water during the monsoon season. So we installed the generator. We haven't had a need to use it yet, but I know monsoon is coming right around the corner.
Right. Is that TEP or TRICO, Eric? Do you
That
remember off the top of your
is-
head?
I want to say that's TEP.
TP?
I believe it's TEP. Most of the utilities are split between TRICO and TEP. The next project was the advanced metering infrastructure that we undertook. The project actually started in 2023 when we filed for the grant. We were awarded the grant, which the grant awarded us $1.6 million. The project overall cost was roughly $2 million. And what's great about the 1.6 grant that we received is it offsets rate impacts to our customers. So they'll never see that $1.6 million impact their rates. The other thing we're excited about, and you were kind of touching upon the, do we see leaks out in the system? This infrastructure provides every single resident in the farmer's water system as well as the Saguaro Las Quintas system the ability to monitor their water use in real time. They also have the ability to set up different alerts based on their usage, and there's also, if a customer wants to take a vacation, they normally use 150 gallons per day. They can set the alert at 50. So if they develop a leak in their irrigation system, they will get an alert, and then they can call us, Global Water, and we'll come out and turn the water off for them. The next project is we entered into a 10-year lease with the town of Sayurita at the Samtec facility. We ended up leasing 8,000 square feet. The tenant improvements was an interesting experience, but I'm happy to say that we've just about wrapped up the project. Of course, there's always some punch list items, but we're working through that. The next achievement was we worked with staff for the Global Water Farmers and the Global Water Saguaro franchise agreements. I can't thank her, but I wanted to thank Lisa because she was fantastic throughout the entire process. The voters did vote to approve the franchise agreements, so we've entered into 25-year agreements with the town, and both of those agreements have been executed.
Great.
We did want to touch upon the CCAP briefly, just to provide an update. So in the CCAP, we have two service areas. It's called Hook M and Wilmot. Those will be transitioning to solar, so developers will be developing that land for solar use. And then we wanted to let the town and staff know that just north of the CCAP, what we refer to as the Verano project, we're currently underway with installing infrastructure and working with Sunbelt, who's the developer. The first phase of that project will be approximately 2,000 residential homes. So that's just north off of Wilmot, near the CCAP. So what are we planning on doing in 2025? We have quite a few projects. The first project, I think everyone's familiar with the standpipe in the Saguaro, Las Quintas, Serenas water system. It's an old analog system. It's very antiquated. I don't think it captures water usage accurately. So we have procured 2 new electronic control panels and metering valves. We're working on integrating our customers into that system. And once we confirm that's working properly, then we can move forward with the upgrades at the actual site.
Eric, I know when this is before you, when they built the food bank, they had to build that huge tank. I think it's our
Correct.
largest swimming pool in the town of Sahuarita, but it was because of the lack of pressure. Is this particular control panel or anything that's been done helping
So-
increase the pressure for fire suppression within that area at all?
So it hasn't been installed yet. We're
Okay.
still working to upload the customer accounts because the two softwares don't want to play friendly. But one of the things that we will have the ability to do with the new metering valves, the way the current system works now, you turn it on and you have an instant draw of about 700 gallons per minute. So it puts a lot of stress on the distribution system, and that's where folks in the utility can experience the pressure
Drop in pressure,
fluctuations. The metering valves will allow us to go into the system and program it so that there's a delay. We can program it to open slowly over 7 or 10 seconds and close slowly over 7 or 10 seconds. And we also have the ability to control the flow rates. So instead of pulling 700 GPM, we'll have to, kind of work through it.
Right.
But we're thinking somewhere along the lines of 500 GPM to lessen that strain on the distribution system and try to minimize any of the pressure fluctuations.
Thanks.
Also in the Saguaro La Quinta system, we're proactively rehabilitating our well 6. There's no issues with it, but as a company, we try to proactively rehabilitate our wells. So basically, we'll cycle through. We'll do well 6 this year. Next year, we'll do well 7. There's nothing wrong with the well, but what we're doing is through a proactive approach, we're hoping we can prolong the life of the well and continue producing water.
Right, kind of like what we do with our roads, right? You don't want to wait till it fails.
True.
So you do the chip seal and fog and all those other with our roads, but
Yeah, when
something similar.
it's never good when it fails. We bought a new piece of equipment. We bought a Vector trailer that will give us the ability to soft dig. It's going to increase our emergency response times to some of the leaks that we experience. And it'll also help us reduce some of the costs that we would normally pay our vendors to go out and do the work for us.
Okay.
So it's giving us a little more flexibility.
Eric, that's, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So that equipment that you're just referencing, it's less invasive to the surrounding area, right? You actually can suck out a hole to find the valve that you need instead of taking a backhoe and ripping a whole bunch out?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's
okay.
basically a giant power washer and
Yeah.
wet vac.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So the power washer has a cutting tool on the front, and it's actually, I'm surprised at how little water it actually uses for the cutting process. But it also doesn't cause any damage to any existing utilities that are in the spot we're digging. So like we said, we're trying to install emergency backup power at all of our locations. This year in the Farmers Water System, we are putting a new generator at the Continental Water Distribution Campus. That is in the Continental section of town. One of the drivers on that is that location supplies water to the La Posada campus. And we know there's folks there that, have special needs and medical issues. So we wanted to try to ensure that they can have water in the event of a power outage.
Great, thank you.
So that's our current generator project for the year. Some of the other projects, we talked about well rehab in the Street of Highlands. That's a standalone well. We have no redundancy currently. So we're going to rehabilitate that well this year. We're also at the Sarita Water Distribution Campus, which is here off of Sarita Road. We're currently working with our engineers on designing a new treatment system. It's a two-prong approach. We're looking at the different levels in the aquifer, and we're also working to identify what the best treatment would be available to put at that location to ensure that we're always compliant with the water we're delivering. We're also at the Global Water Farmers Santa Rita Water Distribution Campus. That's the one that's located in Green Valley. That one we're also working with engineers for a new treatment system. So we anticipate we'll be investing approximately $2 million. I think it'll be a little higher than that this coming year. But all of these improvements are necessary to ensure water quality, and when you turn on your faucet, you get some water.
And it's clean.
But thank you. Now I'm going to turn it over to John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks,
evening.
Mayor, council members. I know I'm going to give a quick update on the rate case. I know Eric talked about this a couple weeks ago, so I'll keep it quick and high level. But again, we filed a rate application about a year ago for our farmers systems. That's worked its way through the process. Really, the drivers there were, again, the last rate case was in 2017, so we're operating based on 2017 costs. A lot of inflation since that time. Additionally, the capital investments that we've made that Eric was describing were part of that rate application. So,
And everything aged over that time as well, right?
everything ages, yeah, and so you gotta continue to invest in the utilities to keep them reliable. And so, ultimately, the outcome was a 5-0 vote by the 5 elected commissioners to approve that rate application, and we volunteered to implement that over 3 phases. The first being May of this year, so customers in the farmer systems will see the increase on their May bill. They will also get a note or a letter in their bill to kind of explain the details of the increase. But then there will also be November of this year, and then May of next year there will be subsequent increases. And so the net impact is about $7 for the median customer. And you can see the phase in there on the bottom line of the chart. So the first phase, about $1.32, again, for the median customer. And then it goes to $2.90 and $2.66 in the subsequent phases. And again, that's for the median customer that uses about 3,500 gallons per month. I also always like to take the chance to promote our customer assistance program. Again, that program offers up to $350 per year to customers that qualify. The qualification criteria are the 5 items listed there on the slide. So again, if there's any customers that are in need of assistance, please have them reach out, and we would love to get them in connection with Wildfire, who administers that program on our
Thanks.
behalf.
It has either you or Eric reached out to Valley Assistance Services. That's one of the 2 groups with the food bank that we work with. And this was something that I, had brought up to them. So I'll get you there if you haven't, because it would be good if they knew this was available for their clients when they come in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'd love to reach out to them
Great.
and let them know about it. So
Thanks.
And then the last item I wanted to highlight was just a pretty significant achievement at the end of 2024, and that was the attainment of a designation of assured water supply. So again, we call it a DAWS for short, but basically what that is the Department of Water Resources approved Global Water's farmers systems to use up to 5,306 acre feet per year. I think that comes out to about 1.7 billion, if my math is right. But so it's a pretty sizable amount of water. Again, there will be some recharge associated with that as well, and so we had to enroll as a member service area with the CAGRD, so the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District. And then there are some fees associated with that recharge, and so we were able to negotiate a prolonged implementation of those fees as well to kind of defer those costs. And so again, that was implemented or approved December of 2024, and then ultimately implemented on January 1st of 2025. So that's great for growth, and it kind of streamlines the ability for developers to come in and build homes based on that designation of assured water supply.
Mayor,
So,
I
yes.
have a quick question for
Sure.
John. John, thank you. That quite an accomplishment, really. That bodes well for the entire community. So thank you for being a leader in that way. Tell me more about the replenishment side of what you're doing. I mean, as a water provider here I know that Global Water has a broad spectrum of water, from ground all the way back to ground again. But here in our community, you're primarily just on the water side of the distribution. So how do you accomplish the replenishment side here in our community when you're only on one half of the equation here right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's where you're right. So we only, as the water provider, not the wastewater provider, we don't receive the water back and to be able to treat it, at least not here in this community. So that's where the CAGRD comes into play, and they have access to Central Arizona Project water that they can then recharge essentially on our behalf, and so that's where that replenishment comes in. And so again, it allows for that sustainability where you are pumping water out of the ground, but then the water is being recharged as well to replenish the aquifer based on the water that's taken out.
Is it the same aquifer, or is it a different aquifer that the replenishment is happening in?
Yeah, it's in the same general vicinity. There are also opportunities to look for additional managed water facilities that are even closer kind of to the direct area where we pull that water out of, and we're exploring that as well. So,
Great, thank you.
yep.
Thanks.
And so with that,
Excuse me, Mayor?
Yes.
Back to the assistance that they are offering. Would that be something that St. Vincent de Paul can benefit from? Because we do have a lot of families that come for utility assistance through St. Vincent de Paul.
Right, well, that would be for the users of the actual, I'm answering for you, but it's telling me if I'm
Yeah.
correct. So it would have to be somebody that's actually using your water, you're one of the water
Correct.
providers for that.
yeah, so one of the customers, but if they go to St. Vincent de Paul, we can, again, reach out to them directly to give them the information to help guide the customer that may need assistance, and then we can get them in contact with Wildfire, who administers it. So there's certainly, we can work with St. Vincent de Paul to make the process as easy as possible for
Right.
customers.
And that's what I was touching on earlier with VAS, because there's a couple of those groups that we work with, or that council members have an association with.
Sure.
Did that answer your question, Debbie?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
So with that, yeah, that is the end of our presentation. Happy to, again, thank you for the opportunity to present, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you, and just thank you in general. I mean, when some of us took a tour of your facility up in Maricopa, pretty much everything that you've said you would do, you've done and gone above and beyond, I would say. I love seeing you at Fiesta and, all the different events. So, we didn't know how that relationship would be. We were hoping it would be like this, but from my observation, it's been fantastic. So I just wanted to thank you. Thank you,
Mayor.
I'll start with Debbie before I forget. Any questions or comments, Debbie?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Councilman? No? Good to my left? What, Mike?
Sorry, what's the lifespan of a well?
Of a well? It's a good question. I mean, we have wells that are 50 to 60 years old. So sometimes ag wells will be kind of transitioned into potable water wells. So, there's a deferral of cost to drilling a new well, but a brand new well often can last, 50 to 75 years, depending on, doing proper maintenance. And you can reline wells to extend
Right.
their life, and there's a lot that goes into it. But you do have to rehab them. The pump and motor, those do not have that long of a lifespan, so you have to do the maintenance to, like Eric said, ensure you're proactively maintaining it and not allowing it to fail unexpectedly. So
Yeah, I don't know if it was a good comparison, but, Air Force days, there are C-130s still flying, right? Well, nothing on a C-130 probably is original, but it still was built in whatever, right? Every pilot is younger than the C-130 that's flying virtually.
Good example.
So I thought, maybe that's a close analogy.
I like it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks
well,
for
thanks for
being
your
here.
time. I
Really
appreciate it.
Next, we come to call to the public. The call to the public is open. Individuals may speak for 3 minutes, spokespersons 10. The council cannot discuss matters not on the agenda. However, at the end of the call to public, council members may respond to criticism, request staff to review the issue, or bring the topic to a future agenda. I don't have any cards, and I think I virtually know every single person in this audience. So I'm assuming no movement. Seeing none, we will close the call to the public and move on to council and town manager brief summary of events. Councilmember Morales, anything to report?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Lato,
Nothing here.
to my left? Oh, yep, microphone. Still not on.
Town of Marana to hear about their development as a town and how we compare to them. Quite a yardstick. And I also enjoyed, Randy, very much the Chamber of Commerce event. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Dr. Leslie?
I'm probably going to steal some of your thunder, but
That's
wishing
okay. I'll just
happy
repeat it.
Mother's Day yesterday to all the mothers within the town.
Well, that was one of my thunders. Well, I wanted to thank the vice mayor. I was on my way back from Phoenix, and she had gotten a call by a neighbor. There was a veteran in hospice at the VA hospital, and he had written a book about the history of Sahuarita, and he wanted to present it to somebody. And since I was driving back from Phoenix from a league meeting, I said, I'll just show up. And so they had the assistant director, a medical photographer, there was a whole crew. And he gave it to me to give to the town on behalf of him. And he used to live here in 2015, Jerry Rowe. And he's doing okay, but, again, he's on hospice. So hopefully we made his day a little bit brighter that day. And I just wanted to thank him for bringing that to us. Also wanted to thank and commend Randy and the Green Valley Sahuarita Chamber of Commerce annual dinner. So now he's transitioning to the state of the town, which will be in September. I was also invited by quite a few pastors and participated in the National Day of Prayer over at Anza Trail. So that was really lovely. Devin and I from Park and Rec toured VASS, the Valley Assistance Service, and learned all the things. That's what made me bring up the fact with Eric and John today I wanted to thank our economic development team. We had a wonderful tour with the Finland delegation, connected with high-tech and the mining industry. And we toured the San Javier underground mine, the U of A's San Javier to the west of us, as well as ASARCO. So it's interesting, just in technology in general, how everything is changing so much. But it was really nice to see all these folks from Finland enjoying Manuel's for lunch. And then I was able to present a proclamation to Rabbi Norman Roman for his 50th anniversary of celebrating as a rabbi, and he's been in our area since 2020. Yep, so it was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of activity, but all of it in a really wonderful way. So, Mr. Dilly?
Yeah, I'd like to invite Dylan to come up and give us a little bit of an update on the splash pad. I know we had targeted this past weekend. It's a bit of a moving target, but I think we've got some good news, and perhaps it's not definite, but more light at the end of the tunnel.
Great.
Thank you, Dylan.
Well, thank you, Shane. Mayor, members of the council. No, Devin actually wanted me here to make sure because he knew that there would be questions about it tonight. So, yeah, so we had been kind of holding off, waiting on some UV components to arrive, and those have arrived. They have been installed. There's still a few little minor issues that need to be addressed, but we had Dustin out from ED today and Lily to take some marketing photos of the splash pad in operation. So we're really close to getting that thing open. So, Mr. Mayor, keep an eye on your calendar because we'll probably be looking to get you out there and get you wet at some point in the not too distant future.
Okay.
And we, again, are hopeful. I don't want to make any promises that I haven't already blown past too many times, but next couple of weeks I think are looking really promising. So
Great, thank you. I should have called John and Eric when we were having all these issues. Maybe they could have now. You have your own issues.
Unfortunately, I think it's out of their hands.
Yeah, probably on there. Any questions? Thanks for the update.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Let us
you.
know as soon as it's open.
You know it. Thank you.
That's it, Mayor.
That's it?
Yep,
Okay.
thank you.
And as a reminder, our next meeting is Tuesday, May 27th, due to Memorial Day. So I hope everybody has a peaceful Memorial Day celebration and give some thought to why we are honoring Memorial Day as we celebrate that. Next is item number 8, which is our consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Thanks. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye.
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 Thanks. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is item number 9, a presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding ordinance number 2025-183 for roadway and railroad crossing closure abandonment. And Mr. Nalavali, our Public Works Director, will be presenting this item. And he's already here, ready to go. Thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. What you have in front of you is the ordinance number 2025-183. It's basically for the roadway and railroad crossing closure and abandonment. So with the successful opening of the El Toro extension, basically from the I-19 all the way up to La Vita, we were able to push traffic to the south side on the new extension. With that, we were able to close the Twin Buttes alignment were in the existing one. So as you are aware, the Twin Buttes, the existing Twin Buttes alignment actually have 2 Union Pacific Railroad crossings. So we are looking to close those 2 crossings, and that's part of our agreement with Union Pacific Railroad to be able to open the new crossing at the new intersection of the El Toro extension and Union Pacific and Rancho Sarita Boulevard. With that, the staff recommendation is to approve the ordinance, but I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, how long do you expect after we do this, will the actual intersection, do we need any more permission from Union Pacific? Or I can't remember the next step
So.
to get the road open.
Yep, so Rancho Sarita and the contractor Hunter Contracting are working with Union Pacific Road on some utility crossing at the new intersection. Realistically, we're probably looking at, we're basically kind of at the mercy and at the schedule of Union Pacific Railroad. We are pushing very hard, but we're looking maybe August kind of time frame for that to be open. So our intent for the closure, for bringing the closure and abandonment of these two railroad crossings to Mayor and Council for approval is so that way we're staying ahead of the process and the schedule. With this approval, potential approval of this, there's nothing else from the town on this portion of it, so we are staying ahead of that. So we're just waiting on Union Pacific Railroad for their approval on it.
Appreciate that. Thanks
Yep.
for the answer.
I've got one question.
yes,
There was some signage there, that, the Twin Butte signage. Has that been removed, or are you going to remove it, or?
Thank you, Councilmember Lido. That's a good question. We are planning to remove those. We've actually put up, are you talking the existing signs or the barricades that we have right now?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so the barricades, we are leaving those up as temporary, but once we remove them, we'll be putting up permanent signs that complies with the manual and uniform traffic control devices.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions? If none, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Mayor, we
Yeah, oh,
we
yes.
need to read the ordinance into record just real quick before you take an action on it.
Yes.
So this is ordinance number 2025-183, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Sahuarita, Arizona, closing and abandoning a certain roadway and railroad crossing in the town of Sahuarita and establishing an effective date. Thank you.
That was a lot longer than our suggested motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to adopt ordinance number 2025-183.
We have a motion and a second. I'm sorry, Debbie, did you have any questions before I move to the vote?
No.
Okay, thanks. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Don't go
Thank
too
you,
far. You're next. Item number 9B, presentation, discussion, possible action regarding license and right-of-way agreement with Wired Contract LLC. And Mr. Nalavali will be presenting this and introducing Mr. Tamura. Thank you. Sorry. Appreciate it.
Mayor, members of the council, I would jump straight to it. I would like to introduce Mr. Jason Tamura, the vice president or the president of marketing and planning with Wired.
Thank you. I would have gone with Jason if I had to remember that.
It's easy that way. Thank you, council, mayor, staff, for having us here tonight. We're excited to bring our services down here. And so with that, we did print out, we do have some printouts. I don't know if you all got them. Okay, great. For mayor knows, but for everyone else, we're Wired Fiber. We're a local company out of Whitman, Arizona. Been here since '95. Been growing over the past few years, and we've gotten to a place where we wanted to expand, and we're expanding down here. And we want to start doing that down here in Sahuarita. We're in the process of going really fast and really big, and from here, I mean, basically from Nogales all the way up to Marana. And so that our goal is to bring fiber internet to the town, provide optionality to the residents, and not just optionality, the ability to have the latest in technology, and it's future-proof. So we're excited about it. We love being partners. I mean, this is probably the best part of my job is coming down and hanging out with the towns and showing our commitment to being a part of the community. So
We're very excited to have you. I know there was another company that had been moving forward and decided in this region not to move forward, and just coincidentally, you reached out just right afterwards, literally. And I know I work with a lot of the mayors in the Phoenix area, and spoke very highly of, Wired and the different communities that you are in up there. And I know folks, want to have some choice in this area. So I'm personally very excited about it. Does anybody have any questions for Jason? No?
Mayor, I have a
Yes.
question.
Yes.
If nobody else on council.
Mr. Lytle did first.
I'm happy to see you down here. I've seen the difference between wire and fiber over the years. I've helped install it in Alaska, so.
Oh man.
He's not,
I'm
he's not
very
looking
proud
for a
of
job,
you.
though.
No, but I get Alaska.
Well, we had cable vaults and we converted it all to fiber, so
Okay.
it was an interesting job.
Especially
And
in Alaska.
I'm very proud to see you here.
I'm very excited to be here.
Thanks. Mr. Dilly?
Thank you. Jason, good to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
So elaborate a little bit on the rollout process. I mean, how do you take a community like ours and logistically get through a sequencing of rolling this service out to public? You are the last mile type service, right? So you're bringing fiber to the home. So how would you take a community like ours and systematically roll out your service to the community? What does that look
And if
like?
you can touch on like micro-trenching, and
Yeah.
people might be used to the old
Abs-
days where you're, tearing up roads and things like that.
Absolutely. So the first step is going to really be getting our backbone built into the city, and we have been fortunate to be working with, if everyone hasn't heard, EX Squared or Vivacity, who has won that agreement to build for Pima County. Well, Vivacity is kind of a sister company to ours, and so we are looking at finding ways to work with Vivacity as well as a couple other carriers and ADOT. I work with Brad Burgess a lot on being able to build the backbone first. Once the backbone's built, we'll then, and actually it's happening right now, we're reviewing the whole town to figure out, densities and how because we have to build it in a way where cabinet size and density, so quantity of homes associated to a cabinet, are correct. If we don't do that really well, we don't build the architecture really well, then we're doing a disservice to the community and we're putting everything in jeopardy. So we're going to do that first. That's happening, and I hope to be done with that in the next 60 days or so. Then from there, we'll start splitting it apart and then figuring out how we will go to each one of those parcels or neighborhoods and parcels, and then we'll work with the town to make sure that makes sense. Because that's the most important thing, is like when we build our network, we just don't go like the big companies and just build it. We work with the communities to make sure that we build it in a way that makes sense. And I say it from the perspective of, you may have streets that were just repaved this year. We may have to wait till next year. We're not going to go do that, right? Or there may be an opportunity where we're doing some work and there's a CIP project, and it makes sense to go in that trench and not tear up a certain area. Additionally, we use the latest technology, micro-trenching, and that is very low invasive, and it's really fast. It's incredible. Up in Peoria, we've been doing about 3,000 feet a day. Yeah, it was a lot faster than I thought it was going to be, and our team is constantly on that and watching it daily to make sure it looks and touches exactly the way we see it. And we've had actually the town of Buckeye, town of Goodyear, who else? El Mirage, all come out and visit and look at the process so they can touch it. They haven't come up quite yet with specs, but they're getting there. So that's been fun. I mean, being able to do that, not being actually in the front yard, but just on the edge of the street and bringing the service right to the house.
And then when you get it into the neighborhoods, you're able to, because we have road, curb, sidewalk and all of that.
Yep.
And you're able to trench under all of that, aren't
That's
you?
absolutely, yeah. So we'll bore and jack underneath sidewalks, get up into the top part of the PUE, and then as people want it, right, we're not going to bring fiber or tear up, or I want to say tear up, do construction in someone's yard unless they want us to. So once they do the order, we'll pull the service right to their house, put it where they want it, and then hopefully we cover them really well. And there's been times, we're about transparency. There's been times where the customer said, yeah, that's where I want it, and they call back 60 days later, it's not as good as I wanted. We'll come back and fix it, right? We'll work with them, so.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And so when will it, and I know it still has to be determined, but approximately the first customer, turning on the switch, so to speak, when do you anticipate that happening? And if you can touch on generally price point and how it compares and those types of things.
Absolutely. So I don't have the exact price points right now. The reason why is because what we're doing for the Tucson area, greater area, is we're doing it's going to look different than Phoenix. Because we know the demographics are a little bit different, right? And so we want to make sure it does well for everyone. In addition, we're making it a different package as well. Today, up in Phoenix, we only go up to 5 gig. When we deploy here, it'll be up to 8 gig. So you can, which is crazy, you can get 8 gig to your home symmetrical when we go to deploy. On timing, it's probably going to take us about a year because of the backbone that has to be built, right? And there could be some pieces that move in and out because of our relationships with other network providers where we can get services as a secondary, but that's something we're working through and we'll have to figure out.
Right.
And then you had a third question?
No, that was it. It was kind of, because when we do the contract, I know it takes, you got to do the backbone and, do all the work. So
Yep.
I just wanted to at least set somewhat of an expectation.
Absolutely.
It won't be next Monday, I can't call you and, put it in, so.
No, and I mean, that's been about our basic model's been about a year. A town similar to this was El Mirage.
Yep.
We got the agreement. I was just thinking through this. We got the agreement in 21, late, I think it was Q3 21, and it wasn't almost to a year later that we actually had some backbone close by. And I think we might have went in another 5 months till we had it fully redundant, and then we started going out. And we've been overbuilding El Mirage for 4 years now, and coming up with better ways and different ways to try to get to places that aren't as rural or not as suburban tight. So we're working with them on other ideas and solutions too.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor, one more
Yes.
question. So Jason, I mean, we obviously think that Sahuarita represents the center of the world.
Yes.
I like that.
And so we'd like to, I mean, is there a competitive advantage that we can tout being in Sahuarita compared to our neighboring jurisdictions in the county?
Man,
What a question. huh?
man, that's a
Testing
tough
you
one.
tonight, no.
Man, we could. I mean, you are the first to give for us to have a license with in the.
There you go.
Yeah, you're the
So
first.
I think that's important for us, and so if you just keep that on your radar and
Oh, yeah.
help us to know how we can shine the good light on our community, that would be great.
Absolutely, sir.
Thanks.
I love it.
We'll have you at our State of the Town this year, so we can,
Love to be there. Oh, in addition too, right? We love being a part of any kind of events, and we are hiring people in the local area, Tucson area, and so there'll be a counterpart that we're talking to right now. He's been here local forever, a younger person, more in the center of Tucson, but he's going to be my equal, and so once we're sure that he's good to go, I'll let you all know who that is.
right, thank you, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So at this time, I'll entertain a motion. If all the questions have been answered.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to approve the license and right-of-way agreement with Reinert Connection LLC.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And Mr. Attorney, was that enough of a full motion? Shane read a little bit more extended, the last one.
Exciting.
For the ordinances, the law requires that you either read the caption or you read the whole ordinance. So we prefer to read the caption rather than the whole ordinance. Since this is a contract approval, it's simply approving the contract.
Thank you. Next is our study session, presentation, introduction, discussion of economic development incentives. And Victor Gonzalez, our Economic Development and Public Affairs Director, will be leading this discussion. So this is a time after Victor presents. I'm personally very excited about it, but where we get to weigh in, questions, concerns, whatever it might be. And Shane, do you expect couple meetings on this, or I guess it depends on how it goes, right? And
Yeah,
feedback.
I'm sure Victor's going to touch on kind of what the schedule looks like for us, but this is the first of several meetings in order for us to get across the finish line. Again, we're interested in the dialogue. We're interested in connecting with council, giving you updates and peek views, sneak previews into other packages and ideas, things that we can do. It's not a one shoe fits all kind of
Right.
thing. It really, it's very strategic. What do we want to be able to attract into our community? And then to figure out what is the right tool to help do that. So there's going to be different approaches to these incentives that can be offered. But again, it's going to be a product of a few different conversations that we have in study sessions like tonight. And tonight's just beginning that effort.
Yeah, thank you. And, from my perspective, it's important because if Victor knows and Alex knows the tools that are in the toolbox, and he's working with these different users, it gives them a level of confidence that he doesn't have to come back and check in with us to see, can we do it or not? So I'm probably stealing some of your thunder. I appreciate it. I apologize, but I'll stop there and let you continue.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Good news is that I'm the last item on the agenda. Bad news is it's a study session and we're talking about incentives. So I'm not sure if we're going to keep it under 15 minutes, but it won't be 2 hours, at least not going into this as I planned. Our town attorney, John, is also going to weigh in towards the end of what is really a two-part conversation this afternoon. Its first part is really the introduction to economic development incentives. The second part is the do's and don'ts, which is really laying the foundation to Shane's point that it is going to be a multi-tiered discussion. So really tonight is about really establishing and setting the stage for what's going to be a tiered discussion on economic development incentives. I wanted to just reference this slide and what you can expect over the next coming council meetings. The first one tonight is going to be the why economic development incentives. And then as we move forward, we'll get into the how, right? How do incentives work? The prioritization, how do you qualify them? And then the what, right? So what is the incentive program that we are going to offer as an organization? So tonight is much about the introduction. And so where you want to provide feedback, where there's some questions, feel free to interject and we can have that conversation. And certainly the do's and don'ts, because I think that's the first question for everyone. What can we do? What does state statute allow us to do? What has case law determined when we look at what other municipalities have offered by way of incentives? And then as we get into future meetings, we'll get into the meat and bones. And so the how is going to be soliciting, right, some feedback as I present right ways in which economic development incentives are prioritized. And then ultimately in the future, we'll bring forth together a package that you will consider as an incentive program for the town. Somewhere in between all of this exercise, there is a multi-pronged approach to soliciting feedback. So I have been already in contact with some of our larger landowners in the community to start to understand a little bit as to how an incentive would benefit them, how they can utilize an incentive for development, and also to solicit any feedback that they might have seen or in other jurisdictions have taken part of. So a lot of back and forth, not only with you as a governing body, but also with our landowners. So by way of introduction, let me just share with you a couple thoughts here as to why incentives and how does that connect to the economic development plan. Well, anything that we do, whether it's a program or activity, or in this case, incentives, there has to be a connection to an economic development plan, right? It's like anything else, right, in our organization or even in your household. If you want to do something, right, there has to be a connection to where do you want to be and where do you want to go. So I referenced the economic development plan, which this body adopted early last year, right? And there's a great quote in that plan that says, the community can either respond to growth with a carefully considered economic development strategy, which is the economic development plan that has been adopted, right? That, tonight I won't go into any specifics about the plan, but that's our North Star. And so, right, we can carefully consider the economic development strategy or allow Sahuarita to continue as is. Now, right, this trajectory is not all that bad. We're seeing growth residentially. We're growing as an organization. There's future investment in the horizon, whether it's the zoo or roads and what have you. And so it's not necessarily a negative trajectory. But if we, by cultivating priorities, right, that align with this vision for what Sahuarita could be, going back to the economic development plan, then we can influence future growth. And so just to remind you, the economic development plan focuses on three areas. This area is people, right? How do we commit to a dynamic workforce for current and future employers? That's the overarching focus of that economic development plan. Prosperity is the second focus area. How do we grow the growth of new and existing industries? And then the last focus area to the economic development plan is make investments that elevate Sahuarita. And how these areas are described within the economic development plan and where we go and how do we influence, well, the question for us is how do we drive prosperity that creates place where people want to live, work, and play? And so, incentives by no means is the end-all, be-all, right? But it allows us, if you will, a tool that can help us achieve these three areas in our economic development plan. An incentive, by definition, is something that incites or has a tendency to determine an action. And for economic development, that incentive induces, right, a business to invest. That is what economic development incentives do, right? It induces a business to invest where it otherwise would not have. And that's important. I think that we can acknowledge that this community has grown. We can acknowledge there's many positive attributes and factors. But the question for us, right, can an incentive induce other activities, industry sectors? Can it induce a certain use? Can it induce and attract a certain type of company or maybe an entertainment operations to the community? But, and that's the question that we ask ourselves, right? Because the other side of the coin, when we talk about incentives, is, but for the incentive. And did the incentive create additional growth? So if the incentive is a means to induce, right, do we run the risk or do we roll the dice and say, well, we want to be ultra conservative and not provide an incentive because they're just going to come anyways? Well, but what about if we do offer an incentive and now we're much more attractable to these businesses? So how do we know, right, as we go down this path that an incentive is going to induce? Well, let me just share with you that there's really three factors when a business is looking to locate in the community. Those three factors have to do with operating costs, so the cost of doing business. So right, is the business going to be profitable? Am I able to generate or turn a profit? Are, the real estate costs going to be attainable? Am I going to be solvent as a business in this location? The other factor, right, is the operating conditions. And that's the non-cost of doing business. So regulatorily, right, is it a good place to do business? Is the police protection going to be there when I have an issue? Are the roads going to be in good conditions? Are the means in which people go to and from this site and other things, right, that are non-cost oriented? And then the last of the three is the quality of life. So the community. So again, right, so these three factors, right, is the business going to be profitable, which is the operating costs? Can I do business there, right, which is the regulatory, the operation conditions, and then the quality of life? Is it a place where I can grow? So, right, those are the things that a business looks at. And so an incentive is a tool that provides a means to decrease a location cost, right? So the operating or improves the conditions. And so again, I'm just setting the stage here for just an introduction to incentives, how we look at the economic development plan, we look at those three focus areas, and how the incentive is a means to attract investment to areas where there's a weaker market. Okay, so what is an incentive? Well, the use of incentives is not a foreign concept for cities and towns across the country. As a matter of fact, based on a IEDC, which is the Economic Development Council, at the national level, they put out a report, which is Incentives for the 21st Century. They cite in this report that U.S. cities and states spent somewhere between 30 and 80 billion annually on incentive programs. So not a foreign concept at the local and state and national level. And tax incentives can look different depending on where you're at and the programs. Whether it's grants, right? Grants could be a form of incentive. Loans and loan guarantees can be a form of incentive. You have that at the federal level through SBA back small business loans. You have land and infrastructure support, and that's typically what you see a lot at the local level. A jurisdiction providing the public infrastructure that supports a business locating. You have the regulatory assistance, which many of us think about the permitting process, right? Could we do it faster, cheaper, and easier? That's right. And so that is a means of incentivizing businesses is through the regulatory process. And then something that we actually have in place here in Sahuarita, and these are these development districts. So here we have the community facilities districts, CFDs, that are a form of an incentive program that developers utilize to be able to build out the infrastructure. So an incentive, right, financial or non-financial benefit is offered to businesses to encourage activities that promote that economic growth and job creation. And then when it's implemented effectively, these incentives programs can provide an advance, right, a community's economic growth. But there's really two key words when you begin to think through incentives, right? The first one is it implemented effectively, right? So these are things that we'll keep in mind as we progress through this conversation as we move in future town council meetings. And then the other one is, does it advance, right, the economic growth? I think for us does it advance the economic development plan that this body has adopted in those three areas, right? People, place, and prosperity. And so there's many different ways, and as we get into the next study session, we'll get into the weeds of it. But the way that we measure, right, not only the implementation, but are we advancing the goals is looking at a very high level. So do we have a return on investment? So this investment program that's created, right, how are we going to measure the return on investment? Some of that's through job creation, some of it's through total wages, but also, is it reducing the leakage? Something very important for our community. We know that many of our residents are going north for either entertainment, restaurant offerings, a number of other services and products. And so the return on investment for us as we look ahead to an incentive program could very well be, is it reducing leakage? Other sectors, as we consider, may be more job intensive or wage intensive. And so those are things that, again, we'll get into the weeds at a future meeting. But right now, it's really just establishing and giving you some thoughts. And ultimately, right, is it fulfilling the ED plan?
As an example, Victor, you might know it off the top of your head, but the software that we're using that was tracking our folks that were going to a movie theater, right? Can you just touch on how that was one example that we have identified tax leakage? So if we were able to keep those folks down here, it was in the thousands. But if you have a
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the due diligence that comes with an incentive, right? It's not necessarily we have an incentive, we're just giving this out or incentivizing any type of business. But, to your point, Mayor, we know that entertainment is something that's been expressed and voiced by the community. And so looking at the data, we know that there's leakages happening specifically for movie theaters and other services and entertainment offerings. In the case of a current project that we're working on, there is significant leakage. And it does a number of things, and we'll get into the specifics of this, because when you start to look at a project based on the criteria, which we'll all collectively work through and establish what that criteria is. But when you look at a project, right, what are the boxes that it's checking off for us? Is it addressing the economic development plan, right, those focus areas? 2, is it addressing maybe an opportunity to attract a sector that, or a business that is not present today, that addresses a need within the community? 3, is it generating a return on investment? If it's an entertainment venue, what are the sales tax returns back to the community? And so looking at those check boxes, and that's all, right, has to be considered when you're looking at the incentive.
Right. And I would add, from a quality of life, am I driving 30 miles to participate in that, or am I driving 2 miles, right? So from a family's perspective, are we accomplishing what we set out in our economic strategic plan?
Absolutely, because it's looking at, right, if it's not for the incentive, could we attract it? But also, when you're able to bring a business like that, you're adding to the quality of life of the community, whether it's you're creating jobs through this business or this sector, or you're establishing this entertainment offering in the community that now enhances a resident's experience to have that location here in the community. So as we get into, right, best practices, right, there's 4 things that I would have you consider, and keep this really in the back of your mind as we move into future study sessions and we get into the specifics of the economic development incentives. But there are 4 high-level bullet points, items to consider, right, when looking at an incentive program. The first one, develop an incentive based on, right, strategic economic development goals. So really, at the end of the day, what does the economic development plan say? And so I'm happy to, if there's a need to visit with you all individually and share that document, it is available on our website. But it might be a good time now for us to just refresh ourselves and remind ourselves as to what that plan articulates when we're talking about the P3, right, in that plan, which is people, prosperity, and place. So when we're looking at, right, an incentive, right, does that incentive commit to a workforce or current employers, right? So an incentive should look at how, right, it aids and induces an industry sector that we want to attract, and it's complementary to Sahuarita. Whether it's aerospace, whether it's optics, or any other industry that's complementary to our region, right? We should consider incentives how not only induces, but also the benefit of having that industry in our community that's providing jobs locally. Prosperity, right? So is the incentive not only helping to grow, but expand some of the existing industries? And then I think what is something that is very prevalent for us is place. And again, I'm referencing the 3 Ps of our economic development plan, right? So how does it address place? How is that investment that business or operator, by way of that investment, is elevating Sahuarita, and it's providing not only the means, entertainment, but also it's adding to the quality of life of the community. The second thing that we need to consider as we're looking at incentives is targeted incentives towards a high value economic activity. Well, how do you measure high value economic activity, right? Well, it's going back to, right, is it checking off those boxes? Is it attracting an industry that is complementary to our existing industries and or will add to the jobs that we have here or create jobs within those sectors? Is it...
It's allowing us to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And so...
Does it hit a wage structure also that, we're looking at? What are we trying to incentivize? Low-paying jobs or high-paying jobs that matches our demographics in their community?
Absolutely. Yeah, so those are things, right, that we consider how the incentive, right, is inducing, a high-value economic activity. So wages, job growth, but also what is the net positive impact to sales tax revenue. And so those are things that we need to consider. And then the third area is, right, including enforceable conditions. So we obviously don't want to provide an incentive and then have to exercise a clawback. Clawback meaning that the project did not perform as we initially thought, and so now we're wanting to get that value or that incentive back. But you do have to consider the penalties if that project does not perform, and that's where you go into, right, the incentive, at least looking at a project, making sure that you're doing your due diligence. In the case of, I'll just use an example, a movie theater, right? We know that based on the data, there's a leakage that's happening. The operator has presented a pretty strong, pro forma to their operations. And so, and then you look at, the impact or the positive that it's going to have in the community, how the project responds to the needs and what residents are voicing that is lacking in the community. And so you start to kind of check those check the boxes. And so again, you have to just consider that within any incentive program that you build in those type of clawbacks. And then finally, what you have to consider is also alternative incentive structures. And so, right, there is not one sole source to that incentive, but multiple incentive offerings. And again, this is all going to be part of the conversation that we have and the discussion as we move forward. Is it a portfolio of incentives? Not only is it in the form of A, but also there's B, C, and D that collectively makes it for a competitive incentive package and value for that business to help it move along and have them make that decision. And that could be, again, financially and non-financial. There's a lot of things that we can do on the regulatory side, on the permitting process as well, or even just in the customer service side. Because at the end of the day, it's, when you look at economic development, it's really a function of service. Right? We don't make the decision for the company. Yes, the incentive induces, but I strongly believe that the level of service could also teeter over to have that individual make that decision. So, if our commitment is, 100% satisfaction, then I think that carries some weight for, for some of the decisions that could be made by those. So, just wanted to lay the foundation, right? Give you some things to think about as we move through the discussion on incentives. Before John gets into the do's and don'ts on incentive, I wanted to pause there and answer any questions or get any comments or insight that you might have.
I had a couple of thoughts, but Debbie, did you want to weigh in? Because I don't want to forget my virtual participants. Thoughts in general, in favor of it? What would it look like? Did you have any thoughts you wanted to share, first of all?
I'm definitely in favor of it, especially the faster, just get it done with permitting. It doesn't really cost, we don't lose a lot of money when we're out there doing same-day inspections, weekend inspections, to something to get it done faster and get them in faster. One of the questions that I had was with Wadsworth, when they came in, we gave them a huge incentive. Is that something else that we're looking at for anybody else that wants to come in? Or are we not there yet?
Do you want to touch on Wadsworth, on what types of help or assistance that we gave? Because some of the council members, I don't even think was on council when we did that project.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, yes, as we get into what would be the second part of our discussion, I do want to bring back some specific examples that we've done in the past. To Councilmember Morales' point, we did provide an incentive in the form of building fees, where the developer, in this case Wadsworth, bringing in a significant commercial center, 130,000 square feet. We all know the center itself with Sprouts and TJ Maxx, and so there was some due diligence, not on our part, but also the developer demonstrating the impact economically that the center would have in the way of not only leasable square footage, but also the tenants, the number of jobs, but most importantly, the sales tax revenue back to the town. And so looking at those factors, we did in fact provide them incentive in the form of building fees for them that help offset some of that cost for developing the project.
And I think to Debbie's point, having it offered, because, I know Robeson's going to be looking at doing some stuff. Of course, Rancho Sarita, has a lot of land to go. So it'd be important to me that whatever is in the toolbox, if it's available to all, if it's the same type of project, I think would be important. So it doesn't look like we're sort of picking winners and losers, type of thing, incentivizing one but not another.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's, I can share with you that it's going to be an interesting conversation as we move forward because there are different needs. So right, the land developer, their need is more so on the horizontal, right? So the cost of bringing land to market, the infrastructure that's necessary, right, there's a cost to that. And so, right, that's where there's different tools like, CFDs, community facilities districts. There's things that as a jurisdiction you can do with public infrastructure that is to and from the site, right, that could induce or help develop that site sooner. And then it's a different need that a vertical operator has, right? The infrastructure is already there, the building's there, the public infrastructure is already built out. And so how do you incentivize or induce a business to locate in a facility, in a building that's already there? So, and then there's ways to package, right, an incentive, whether it's horizontal or vertical, right, that brings in a suite of different types of incentives. Like we did with Wadsworth and the Crossing, that was building fees, but also there's the non-financial, which is expedited permit review. Also, things that we could consider, right, if there's offsite improvements that need to be done. But those are things that, as we get into, I'll certainly come back and share some specific examples of the type of incentives that we've done, what other jurisdictions have also done, and then having us consider how we move forward. Ultimately, yes, we want to provide some uniformity so that there's a clear understanding by whoever is the project or the business or the developer of the type of incentives that they could that could be made available here in the community.
Yeah, and one would be from other jurisdictions. I remember talking to Mayor Honey, I think Sargent's, when they were looking at expanding, and it wasn't a very nice-looking building. So, it was sort of not blighted, but, there's ways to take older buildings, and if you're upgrading them, can you do that as part of it? That's the one I remember up in Marana. So there's lots of tools, right, that you could have in your toolbox, and that would be an example of that.
Yeah, and so before I let John speak, so yes, please, as we move forward, please keep these 4 areas in mind. Referencing this slide, right, is how can this incentive that we bring together address, right, the goals that we have in the economic development plan. Number 2, what are the high-value economic activities that we want to incentivize? We want to reduce leakage, we want to create jobs, but we also want there to be an ROI. And then, if we are to enforce, what would those look like? And I think we all have a sense of, right, what could be a portfolio of things that we would want to offer, not only financially, but I think we all know that when it comes to incentivize a project, non-financially, we want to be able to provide, the best service. And I can remember, some of the feedback that we received from Mark Malkahaney from Power Photonic. One of the reasons why he chose Sahuarita, which we didn't incentivize, but one of the reasons why he chose Sahuarita was just the level of response and access that he had, not only here at Town Hall, but also the sense of community. And so there is an intangible incentive to that. So,
yeah. Shane, I know you had a question or a comment.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Morales, raised an interesting question in terms of why we're even here tonight, starting this conversation and this journey with council. Consistency in how we apply an incentive is really important, so that we do things right. And it's hard to look backwards and say, what did we do in the past if we didn't have the plan that we're actually working towards now. So having a plan that identifies our targets and then having tools in the toolbox that allows us to pick the right tool to, address those targets is really what we're trying to accomplish. John's going to go into helping us understand the parameters around our thinking as we go forward.
Right.
But it's really important that we have this plan so that we can consistently apply. And it's been very clear in our conversations between my office and Victor's that what we put together as a community is available to everybody.
Right.
Parcel 30, the downtown area with Rancho, the work that Robeson is doing out there at Quail Creek. They've got commercial pads,
Right.
So it would be available to anybody. However, it's strategic in the council working with staff and identifying what are the targets. Because it's not just going to be, you're not going to put an incentive package out for another fast food,
Right.
Location. It's going to be things that we see that we need in our community that we're lacking to address the sales tax leakage, all sorts of other stuff.
Right.
We have needs as a community, and so these incentives and these tools ought to be used to bring that kind of balance to our community.
Yeah, and before turning to John, I mean, just the foundation of, is everybody open to it, right? I know it might be what it looks like, the devil's in the details, but I wanted to make sure everybody was, on board that, this conversation should move forward, that we should have an incentive package. I mean, I think I do, but there's 7 of us, right? So, Dr. Gillespie?
Mayor?
Oh, yeah, I'll go to you, Debbie, and then I'll go to Dr. Gillespie.
Okay, I just have another question for Victor. Rooftops, where are we standing with that? Because I know in the past, that's always been an issue with any commercial that's wanted to come in. Are they okay with that? Are they doing their due diligence, or are we still going to struggle with that?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Morales, who was that?
I think, right, rooftops, that, are we
Oh,
at
rooftops.
a place where, between us and Green Valley?
Where do we
16th
stand? Where do we stand as far as the rooftops and commercial? Because I know before in the past that has been a struggle.
Yes, so it varies from user to user. So let's just consider Target or Costco as a big box example. They're going to be much more traditional in how they look at rooftops. So, right, they'll want to see 100, 200, 250,000 rooftops within a 3.5 mile radius. We certainly don't have that. I think when we look at smaller operators, they'll consider more so our unconventional trade area. And so what we've been able to find through the data with Placer AI is that we're pulling consumers from Valencia West, Midvale, the 85706 zip code, which is really the in and around Tucson International Airport. And we knew anecdotally that we were having folks from Corona coming into Sahuarita, but
Or Rio Rico.
Rio Rico
Nogales,
as well,
right.
absolutely. So now with the data in hand, we know for a fact that there are, there is foot traffic, vehicle traffic coming down to Sahuarita. So that's really opening up what I think is going to be a new way to approach some of these smaller operators, whether it's more of a regional chain or restaurant or entertainment operator, because for them, one, they don't have access to that kind of data, and so that's almost an incentive that we can provide to them is sharing that data to them that not only strengthens our argument but also shows the numbers to them.
And let's not forget, the U of A does a study, ongoing on how many visitors from Mexico, were on the I-19 corridor, and those are numbers that, hopefully Placer AI can help on, because, we have 2 million visitors that come by us. What are we capturing of that? And, and especially, you're not beating up the roads and those types of things. You're coming, you're visiting, maybe staying, have dinner, but, you're depositing that sales tax and then moving on from there.
Absolutely. And so, Councilman Morales, I feel much more optimistic with the data that we have now at hand to show that our trade area is much larger beyond Sahuarita Green Valley and extends up to Tucson, which I think is a convincing data for regional operators. Now we're going to get the Costco's and Targets. That's still very much driven by rooftops, and we're just not quite there to the numbers that they consider for an area.
I will add that this new software that we've started using, this Placer AI, is going to be an incredible tool for us to do a deeper dive into the influence and the potential impact we have as a community.
I know even just with Fiesta Sahuarita, we always would guess, resident, non-resident, but I think that was one example on how many people we were pulling in from outside of our community. So I think it is a powerful tool, which, helps. It's an incentive, right? For them to have that kind of data, but it also helps increase the possibility they might, be willing to invest here. Dr. Gillespie.
One thing for our next meeting, when we have more specific examples, I'd be curious with the crossings, with the financial incentive we gave, and then our break-even point, if we could get an estimate on that. But to answer the question, is this a good plan? I think with targeted incentives for the types of businesses we want, yeah, that's a good plan. I don't think we should just throw everything out, though, but I don't think that's what we're aiming for either.
No.
Yeah, I haven't heard blank check conversation yet.
Yeah.
Diane, on board, the direction that we're going, and from what you heard, at least for tonight?
I'm on board.
You need to turn your mic on, please.
I'm on board, and I would like to give you as many tools in the toolbox as possible, and to be as creative and innovative as possible, because I share Debbie's frustration with this business of rooftops. That's all I've heard. And the AI tool kind of blows the lid off of that a little. And I'd like to also take a deeper dive into the whole rooftop thing. I'll give you an example of a Trader Joe. In Tucson, there are multiple Trader Joe's, and they're not far from one another. So how do they build Trader Joe's in Tucson, and they don't have 100,000 rooftops from a few miles away to the next Trader Joe? So how does that work? And how do we take advantage of Nogales, Rio Rico, Amado, Tubac? There's nothing south of us. We're it. So why can't we use all of that? And I'd like to be as creative as possible using the latest technology and tools available to give you a very healthy bag of tools to use so that you can pull out what you need to pull out given a certain circumstance that presents itself.
And that's
I'm holding firm for my brewery.
And that's a good transition, because I'm hearing lots of creativity. So I might have to, I don't know, tie John down or something a little bit on, you want to talk about how creative? I know I was familiar more with the City North case many years ago, and I think it's even gotten a little, I think it was the Cabela's. There was an example where basically they bought the Cabela's in that community, and that got a community in Phoenix in trouble. But if you want to touch on how creative we can get.
Sure, Mayor and Council. Well, back in the good old days, we used to be able to give sales tax or TPT rebates, and so, for instance, when I was at Glendale, we would be able to refund 50 cents of every new tax dollar for a Costco to come to town, or for a car dealer to expand. And let's say they generated $1 million in TPT a year. If they were to expand their dealership, we would be able to, every dollar above that million, we'd give them 50 cents back, up to a certain amount or for a certain length of time. Really can't do that anymore, based on, and I'll talk a little bit about the sort of the cases that have addressed the sort of gift clause. And the gift clause is just at a basic level, it's a constitutional provision that says that the town, among other government entities, can't give aid to, financial aid to, make donation or grant or subsidize any individual, association, or corporation, or become an owner of a company. So the early cases talked about the intent of the gift clause, and this is a quote, is to curtail the orgies of extravagant dissipation of public funds. And so that theme has sort of been seen throughout the cases. The early cases applied a two-part test to the gift clause analysis. One, that the town and the town's expenditure has to be for a public purpose, and that's the courts usually defer to the council to say this is a public purpose within reason, and then you have to receive consideration. So in its most basic form, when we enter into a contract with a construction contractor to build something for us, we pay them money, and then in return we get their services. Or when we go buy garbage cans, we pay them money and they give us garbage cans. So that's a real basic form of not violation of the gift clause. Other things that in the incentive world, and it was mentioned by Victor and others, is that deregulation or waivers of regulation, particularly in zoning and land use, are forms of incentives that typically will survive a gift clause challenge. So a height requirement, going higher, going more density, and then, as was said, reducing sort of regulation to a point where the developer gets more bang for the buck, more ability to develop more on the property than they would in a more restrictive area. Those are the kind of incentives that typically would survive gift clause challenge. So historically, we always had this two-pronged test of public purpose and consideration. The City North case, which is Turkin, added in a condition, by way of background, this is a case where City of Phoenix entered into a development agreement with the developer for a development up near Desert Ridge, sort of north of the 202, and essentially the city provided all kinds of tax incentives to the development because it was going to generate a considerable amount of TPT. And in return, the city got parking spaces in a parking structure. And so the Supreme Court in Turkin said, we look at, it's a public purpose parking. The city got consideration, but did it violate the gift clause because the consideration that the city gave was, or what the city got, was inequitable and unreasonable in that it was disproportionate. Right. So there has to be some relative, proportionality in the city expenditure, the town incentive, and what the town gets back. And what it also looked at, and this is what sort of killed the TPT incentive, was that you can't use new sales tax as a basis for giving an incentive, because the court's theory, I suppose, is that, well, you're going to get that sales tax anyway when they come. Problem is they don't come.
Right.
But it said that you can't look at new TPT as a base, as part of the consideration for what you get back. So it has to be something else that's proportionate to what the city's giving or the town is giving. So then the next sort of cases that came about, and Turkin was the law for quite some time in the world of gift clause, was a non-gift clause case, but it was a pretty good case that talked about what is consideration. And it's a case basically between, I think it was two dentists who got into a fight over something or other, shocking, two partners. And the court analyzed what the consideration was, and it basically, consideration is the performance or return promise to do something in exchange for the promise of the other party. So in pure contract law, consideration is just, I'm going to do this and you're going to do that. It's a bargain for deal. And what the courts have said subsequent to that is that in contractual terms, that's fine for consideration. In gift clause terms, that's not necessarily the analysis. That you can go into a deal, buy a car, for instance, where you may get hosed by the car dealer, but you're paying way too much for what you're getting. But if it's as long as it's not fraudulent, it's a fair deal. So what the courts have said is that the consideration in gift clause is different than consideration in contract analysis. And so after Turkin, in terms of gift clause issues, there was the Peoria case, Shires versus Carlott. That case sort of furthered the proportionality case. And that was a case where Peoria basically bought a building or built a building and tried to incentivize a university to come to Peoria, and essentially gave it free rent. And then it was challenged, and the deal was essentially thrown out because Peoria paid far too much for something that effectively created a subsidy. So you can't subsidize a business, whether it's a university, whether it's an employer, whether it's a Costco. You can't. You have to essentially get something back. That's something not that it isn't just new sales tax. So it has to be. And so Carlott, the Shires case, said there has to be a direct benefit, not unlike contract analysis. There has to be a direct benefit, not anticipated indirect benefit. So if you in the Shires case, we're going to build a building, and we're going to give it to this college, essentially this university. They're going to bring in a bunch of people, and those bunch of people are going to hang out at this college because it was wasn't online at the time, and there's just captured people here, and so those captured people are going to need a place to eat. Mm-hmm. They're going to need a place, they're going to need a place to shop, and so we're going to anticipate all of this new sales tax. So not only it can't be guaranteed sales tax. Costco says or Cabela's, we're going to come in and we generate X millions of dollars of sales tax a year, and with this demographic and this size, which is not anticipated, it's almost assured.
Right.
It goes to the next level and says it has to, even if it's direct, it doesn't work, but anticipated, it certainly doesn't work. So when you bring in a non-tax generating entity to build, like an employer, let's say, all of those 500 employees, they're going to need some place to eat, shop, whatever. That's even worse in terms of gift clause analysis. So it came down to that the town, for the incentive to survive, the return not only has to be not disproportionate, now it has to be the fair market value, and that's very difficult to determine when you're doing an incentive package. It's very easy to determine. Well, we're buying 1,000 garbage cans and it's $90 a can. It's pretty much fair market value, right? I mean, so, but it's a lot more difficult to determine an incentive package, and what we're getting in return is the fair market value. So what Shires basically said is you have to get something concrete, because that only then can you determine what fair market value is. Now, there's some workarounds with that. If you can monetize the returns, in other words, if you have an economist say the value of this is this, monetize it and say the value of 30 or 50 or 500 employees is this in terms of sales tax generation, you can monetize it, and you can maybe argue that that the fair market value of what we're giving is we get the return on.
Like we could have an incentive package that is based off of the number of new jobs you create.
In theory, as long as you're able to monetize it, actually you're able to say that if 500 new jobs is going to, like an economist will be able to tell you, what does that mean? What is the direct benefit to the town? Right. What are those 500 new employees going to do in terms of their new shopping and their new eating? And nowadays, rooftops are actually, the old theory was you need X number of rooftops to generate retail. Well, now each rooftop is its own retail, because Amazon and all the other online sales, each of those rooftops is its own sales tax generator.
Right.
And so you used to say rooftops don't pay for themselves. That's not necessarily the case anymore, sort of a new model. So you have to get a bargain for benefit, and it can't be just grossly disproportionate to the fair market value. So that's sort of the state of the law after the Peoria case, Shires. Then we have a wrinkle, and it's a case out of Scottsdale called Neptune. And basically, what that is the Supreme Court addressed it and it was a case where Scottsdale put out an RFP or RFQ for the city's aquatic programs in Scottsdale, and there was the existing provider called Scottsdale Athletic Club, and then a challenger called the Neptune Swimming Foundation, or Neptune. And so the city used an RFP. And what happened is that Neptune actually offered more dollars back to the city than Scottsdale Athletic Club. So they go through the analysis. Is it a public purpose? Yes, it is. If it's not a public purpose, then it just stops. Then you ask, is there the value received by the public roughly equal or proportionate to the consideration paid by the public? So is the public getting something for what it's giving? And that does the give exceed the get? Or is the get roughly equal to the give? So what happens in Neptune, though, is that the court said just because Neptune was willing to pay a higher fee didn't conclusively establish the fair market value, because there were non-pecuniary benefits to that count as consideration. So like I said, there's sort of an odd wrinkle in Neptune. So collecting more user fees wasn't necessarily the greatest benefit to the city. And in that case, they looked at not just the city as the municipal corporation, but the city as a whole. Scottsdale Athletic Club had a proven track record and a better program for swim lessons and things like that for city residents than what Neptune was offering. Even though Neptune was offering more money, pecuniary benefit to the city, SAC said, or the city or the court said, but we'll defer to the city of Scottsdale because they said, well, this program's better and here's why. Right. So they could articulate the benefits, more programs, better organized, broader range from youth to seniors, whereas I think Neptune was more for competitive type swimming. So they said, even though economics are critical, you can look at non-economic factors when doing the analysis. It's a weird case because it's hard to decide when that's going to apply, particularly to an economic development incentive program. But there is that element that says, well, we can look at non-pecuniary benefits, not just to the municipal corporation, but to the town residents as well. So those are things we can look at. So we can consider non-pecuniary factors in deciding what arrangement terms are the most advantageous, even if a more financially profitable deal exists. So there's maybe a little bit of softening out of that case than the pure economic analysis type cases. So that's where we stand now in terms of gift clause and dealing with economic incentives or economic development incentives. We'll know it when we know it, I think, is the way to do it. There's obviously very cautious approaches. There are less cautious approaches, but I think that I would sort of respectfully disagree with the statement that all the incentives should be available to everyone, because they should, to me, to best analyze these, you have to do it in particular to the particular project, because only then can you determine what is this project bringing to the table versus everybody should be able to access everything. Because some of those if you offer incentives to, as let's say Shane was saying, a fast food restaurant, well, they may not be bringing enough to the table versus a Home Depot. And it could be proportionate to the fast food restaurant, as terms of sales, but it may not provide the benefits or the consideration that a box store, let's say, would offer. So I think to really survive gift clause analysis, you can have a package or a slate of various incentives, but every package needs to be sort of customized to that particular development or that particular proposal, because only then can you analyze, is the town and the town, including the town residents, are we getting sufficient consideration in this deal for what we're giving out? What's called writ large, the town writ large, rather than just the town. So the good thing about the Neptune case was it allows you, as the council, to look at the non-pecuniary benefits to the town residents as a whole, rather than just as a corporate entity saying, am I overpaying for what I'm getting back as a corporate entity? Right. So there is some loosening maybe a little bit under that Neptune case. So that's the good news. Right. But it's certainly not the 2000s where you could give 50 cents on every dollar of tax generated to get somebody to come to town.
Right. Thanks. Shane?
John, would you, I know there's a deep dive into this particular topic, but at a very high level, is there, can you describe some of the consequences a municipality might experience if they deviate outside of the parameter of case law?
Well, the primary consequence is that somebody could sue, whether it's Goldwater or whether it's another private person, and we see the Shires versus Carlett was Kathy Carlett, the mayor.
Yeah, she was the mayor.
Shires was a resident of the town, but she was represented by the Goldwater Institute. So really, they go out and hunt for a person, a resident who say has standing. And there are other probably organizations out there, maybe even the Attorney General, depending on the administration. So that's the risk you run is if you sort of run afoul of gift clause, there's a chance that the deal will be undone.
Right.
And that creates all kinds of chaos because, you have this development or this retailer who's relying on this stuff. So you have to be very careful with, drafting those kinds of agreements to say, if this is undone, first of all, we have what's called severance, severance clauses that say, if this part's found illegal or unconstitutional, the rest of the agreement still remains in effect. But that may not be enough for, if they're relying on that one primary incentive. So every one of these needs to be carefully analyzed, and every one of these needs to be assessed sort of risk. And then ultimately the council gets to decide whether the return is worth the risk. No risk is no return. Greater the risk, greater the return. But there's probably a sweet spot somewhere for most deals.
Yeah, and I would add to that, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Arizona state is, I would say, pretty. Conservative wouldn't be the right word, but there's a reason why there isn't an exhaustive incentive program at the state level. It's very precise. Even when you look at the qualifiers with like the Arizona Job Creation Tax Credit Program, there's benchmarks which that company has to meet, not only in job creation, but wages, as well as insurance, and so on and so forth. So, but that's going to be, the process in which we'll engage as we move forward. At the next meeting, we'll get into a little bit more of prioritization, qualifiers, right? Qualifiers is, again, yes, we want in a program that could, we can tout, right? That not only are we saying that we're pro-economic development, but we have this language, right? This policy that right, establishes how we're going to support businesses. But to John's point, right, there's also the qualifiers, right? So yes, right, a business can, look at the program, but it's going to be the qualifiers that's going to make that business eligible. But also, many of these incentives, right, are solidified through agreements. And, whether it's a development agreement or, something that formalizes this incentive program or the incentive that's given, and then the ROI. So, yeah, so that's what we're going to get into the next meeting. We're going to roll up our sleeves a little bit more, get into the weeds, along with, at the next meeting, certainly bringing back some examples that kind of highlights what other jurisdictions have done, and certainly what we've done in the past, and how all that kind of fits together with where we want to go. There's two really spectrums to this, right? There's no incentives whatsoever, right, which could be the position that we might find ourselves, and there's the position in which it's the wild west, and you run afoul and you run a risk, and we certainly don't want to be on either side of those spectrums, and so there'll be a balance with that. What I'll do is kind of an action item for myself. I'll share the economic development plan with town council once again, and I think that can certainly be a good reminder and refresher for us as to what that plan outlines for what we want to prioritize, and then that could help us, give us some context as we move forward to future meetings. So with that, if there's any other questions or comments?
Just make sure you reach out to both Kim and Kara and just kind of give them a high level of what we discussed.
Yes.
And then along with the plan, but at least catch them up a little bit if you would.
Absolutely, will do.
Okay, thanks. Any other thoughts for now? More to come?
I have a comment.
Yes.
Back to Wadsworth, I was just an employee back then, and I was kind of annoyed the fact that we gave them an incentive, being a taxpayer and a constituent at the time. But it is proven that incentive worked.
Right.
Look what it's doing for us every day. So moving forward, I think, and I'm just saying this to the new council members, mainly that I'm for it. Like I said, it's proven to have worked. So
right.
Hopefully you guys come up with a good package that we can all agree with, Victor.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Having no more further business, we're adjourned. Don't show up on Monday. That's
Debbie
Memorial
Morales.
Day.
Is now exiting.